Plato, born around 427 BCE in Athens, Greece, was an eminent philosopher who profoundly influenced Western thought. A student of Socrates and a teacher of Aristotle, Plato founded the Academy, one of the earliest institutions of higher learning in the Western world. His works, primarily in the form of dialogues, explore various subjects including ethics, politics, metaphysics, and epistemology. Plato's most famous work, The Republic, outlines his vision of a just society and introduces the allegory of the cave, a metaphor for human enlightenment and the pursuit of knowledge. His philosophy centers on the theory of forms, positing that the material world is a shadow of a higher, immutable reality. Plato's ideas have left an indelible mark on philosophy, shaping centuries of thought and discourse. Plato, one of the most influential philosophers in Western thought, developed a profound system of ideas that continue to shape our understanding of reality, knowledge, and ethics. His works, especially The Republic, explore the nature of justice, the structure of the soul, and the ideal state. Central to his philosophy is the theory of forms, which posits that the material world is a shadow of a higher, immutable reality of forms or ideas. These forms are interconnected and reflect an underlying unity and harmony. Plato's exploration of the soul's tripartite structure, comprising the rational, spirited, and appetitive parts, further illustrates his belief in the interdependence of virtues for achieving a balanced and just life. This analysis aligns Plato's philosophy with a series of logical triads, each elucidating different aspects of his thought and their implications for the soul and the state. Plato's theory of forms suggests that various forms are interconnected and exist in a higher reality. For instance, the forms of beauty, good, and justice coexist harmoniously, each reflecting and supporting the other. This interconnectedness signifies that each form is dependent on the others for its full realization, creating a coherent and unified reality. As Plato states, in the world of knowledge, the idea of good appears last of all and is seen only with an effort. And when seen, is also inferred to be the universal author of all things beautiful and right, parent of light and of the Lord of light in this visible world, and the immediate source of reason and truth in the intellectual. Republic 517b. This quote highlights how the form of the good is fundamentally linked to beauty and justice, underscoring their coexistence. Plato's tripartite soul describes the rational, spirited, and appetitive parts. An imbalance among these parts disrupts the equilibrium of the soul, leading to internal strife and disorder. As Plato explains, a man is not held in the bonds of necessity until he has been dragged down and out of the sight of justice and virtue, when he takes justice as his guide in the performance of the meanest act and is governed by reason. Republic 591d. This suggests that when the parts of the soul are not in harmony, the individual is distanced from justice and virtue, highlighting the necessity of equilibrium. The allegory of the cave illustrates the journey from ignorance to knowledge to enlightenment, with each stage reinforcing the next and supporting overall growth towards the truth. Plato describes this process, and if he is compelled to look straight at the light, will he not have a pain in his eyes which will make him turn away to take in the objects of vision which he can see, and which he will conceive to be in reality clearer than the things which are now being shown to him? Republic 515e. This quote emphasizes the progressive nature of enlightenment, where each stage builds upon and reinforces the previous one. In the Republic, the ideal state's decay from democracy to oligarchy, democracy, and tyranny exemplifies how the absence of one virtue leads to the degeneration of the entire system. Plato notes, then the final transformation of a democracy is into a tyranny, when the insatiable desire for freedom and the neglect of everything else cause people to lose all they have. Republic 562b. This illustrates how the lack of one virtue, for example moderation, initiates a feedback loop that ultimately results in the complete collapse of the system. Plato's theory of recollection in Meno posits that learning leads to the formation of true beliefs, which subsequently leads to knowledge. Without initial recollection, there can be no knowledge. Plato explains, as the soul is immortal and has been born many times and has seen all things in this world and the next, there is nothing which it has not learned. No wonder that it is able to recollect the things which it knew before. Meno 81 CD. This highlights the causal chain where initial learning is essential for the development of true knowledge. The decline from the ideal state back to a state of chaos demonstrates how the loss of justice leads to the loss of virtue, and how tyranny ultimately leads back to chaos. Plato remarks, and in the end, as we know, the progression of the rulers through the different kinds of government is cyclic, so that when they have all been tried, they return once more to the democracy, and the old cycle begins again. Republic 546a. This quote underscores the cyclical nature of political states and the inevitability of reversion without justice and virtue. The dialectic process in Plato's philosophy is non-linear. The pursuit of knowledge can directly lead to understanding the form of the good, which then enlightens the philosopher. Plato describes this process. The dialectical process is a movement which, through the close consideration of one's object, lifts up the soul until it reaches what is pure, simple, and unchangeable. Republic 511b. This indicates the non-linear progression from knowledge to the ultimate understanding and enlightenment. In retrospect, understanding the absence of wisdom prevents achieving higher knowledge. Conversely, the presence of the forms leads to the pursuit of wisdom. Plato states, "The soul, when returning into herself, reflects, and then she passes into the other world, the region of purity, eternity, immortality, and unchangeableness, which are her kindred." Phaedo 79d. This underscores the importance of retrospection in understanding the relationship between wisdom and knowledge. In the Republic, wisdom leads to courage, and courage leads to moderation. Together, they culminate in justice. Plato articulates this interconnectedness. Justice is a principle which ensures that everyone performs the role to which they are best suited and does not meddle with the roles of others. Republic 433b. This highlights how the combination of virtues leads to the establishment of justice in the soul. Injustice in the soul means that the absence of moderation leads to the absence of courage, and without wisdom, other virtues cannot exist. Plato asserts any interference with the specialization to which a class or an individual is by nature best suited is a violation of justice and leads to a worse state. Republic 434a. This underscores how the lack of one virtue leads to the absence of others, resulting in overall injustice. Virtues in the soul are interdependent. Courage implies the presence of wisdom and moderation, and wisdom and moderation support courage. Plato states, "The state which we have described is not only the best, but also the most practical, in that the three classes keep their mutual relation intact." Republic 443c. This highlights the interdependent nature of virtues within the soul. In Plato's ideal state, the absence of wisdom and moderation leads to the absence of courage. Without courage, wisdom and moderation cannot exist. Plato warns, "Then if there is any one thing which is able to destroy and corrupt everything, it is injustice." Republic 351e. This highlights how the absence of certain virtues can bottleneck the development of others, leading to corruption. The harmonious functioning of the soul's three parts, rational, spirited, and appetitive. Each part supports the others to maintain balance. Plato explains justice in the soul is that condition in which each part of the soul performs its function and does not overstep its bounds. Republic 441d. This quote highlights the harmonic balance necessary for justice within the soul. Discord in the soul occurs when the absence of justice leads to the breakdown of rational and spirited parts, causing overall disharmony. Plato states, "The soul that does not possess virtue, but is full of vice, is diseased and disorderly." Gorgias 477a. This emphasizes how the lack of one virtue can lead to a dissonant and unhealthy soul. In Plato's ideal state, each virtue, wisdom, courage, moderation, leads to and supports the others, creating a unified whole. Plato notes when all these elements, wisdom, courage, moderation, are in harmony, then the soul is healthy and just. Republic 444d. This illustrates the convergent nature of virtues in achieving a balanced soul. Fragmentation of the soul occurs when the absence of two virtues leads to the absence of the third, causing a divergent and fractured state. Plato warns, "The soul which lacks the virtues will be torn apart by internal conflict and will never achieve true happiness." Republic 353e. This highlights how the absence of multiple virtues can lead to a fragmented and conflicted soul. The interplay between different states of the soul where a combination of some virtues and the absence of others leads to different outcomes, reflecting the dynamic nature of the soul's aspects. Plato observes, sometimes one part of the soul prevails over the others, sometimes another, depending on the circumstances and the individual's actions. Republic, 553d. This underscores the complex and dynamic nature of the soul's virtues and states. A division within the soul where the presence of some virtues and the absence of others leads to conflicting states, emphasizing Plato's concern with internal conflict. Plato states, when there is internal strife within the soul, the individual is at odds with himself and cannot achieve harmony. Phaedrus, 246a. This highlights the detrimental effects of division within the soul. Association of virtues in the soul where different combinations lead to the formation of others, showing the interconnectedness of virtues. Plato notes, the presence of one virtue often brings about the development of others, leading to a more complete and harmonious soul. Republic, 430e. This emphasizes the interconnected and associative nature of virtues within the soul. Disassociation within the soul where the absence of certain virtues leads to the absence of others, reflecting the disintegration of the ideal state or soul. Plato asserts the absence of a single virtue can cause the entire soul to fall into disorder and vice. Republic, 444a. This highlights the cascading effects of the absence of virtues, leading to disassociation and disintegration. Integration of virtues in the soul where the presence of certain virtues leads to the development of others, aligning with Plato's idea of a harmonious soul. Plato explains, when the rational part of the soul rules and the spirited part supports it, the individual achieves true wisdom and virtue. Republic, 442c. This underscores the integrative process of developing virtues within the soul. Disintegration of the soul where the absence of certain virtues leads to the collapse of others, emphasizing the degeneration of the ideal state or soul. Plato warns, the soul that lacks virtue and is governed by vice will ultimately fall into chaos and misery. Gorgias, 479c. This highlights the disintegrative effects of vice and the absence of virtues, leading to the soul's collapse. The integration of Plato's philosophy with our triadic analysis reveals the intricate and interdependent nature of his thought. Plato's vision of an ideal state and a just soul relies on the harmonious coexistence and mutual reinforcement of various virtues. His theory of forms and the tripartite soul underscore the necessity of balance and interconnectedness, where each virtue or part supports and is supported by the others. This balance ensures the proper functioning of both the individual and the state, highlighting the importance of equilibrium and the dangers of imbalance. The cyclical and non-linear elements of Plato's philosophy demonstrate the dynamic and evolving pursuit of knowledge and virtue, emphasizing the continuous effort required to achieve and maintain justice. Ultimately, our analysis illustrates that Plato's ideas, grounded in the harmonious integration of various elements, provide a timeless framework for understanding the complexities of human nature and society.